Hello, it's Darren Chang, ready to do a full review now of the Mountain Hardwear Folsom 28 liter. If you're interested in looking at the tour of the bag, the point-by-point tour of the bag, then you should go to my first look video right there, because this review is not going to go over the minute details of the bag as much as it's going to focus in on the aspects of the bag that either work really well or don't work so well. So let's get on with this. We're going to start off, as usual, with design and usability. All right, so let's focus here in particular on the organizer panels associated with this bag. And I will tell you that, as many of you know, I really like to have organizer panels in an easily accessible area. And that often means having it on the front of the pack, although more recently, I discovered that having an organizer panel in the tech compartment actually worked quite well for me. Turns out that the Folsom 28 has neither of those. So despite the fact that it has a slash pocket on the front, it doesn't have it there. And while it does have a tech pocket here, the tech pocket actually does not have much of an organizer panel other than a place to put your laptop and also a place to put your iPad. So where do they have it? You can see here that Mountain Hardwear decided to put it here in the main compartment. And not only did they put it in the main compartment, but they put it high on the back wall. Now, being high isn't such a bad thing because obviously you don't have to reach down low to pick out your pens or your wallet or whatever it is that you need. The problem is that there's a pretty steep overhang, as you can see here. And what that means is when you need to get something out of here, you have to fight with this overhang in order to get access to whatever you're trying to grab. Maybe that's a pen or a pencil. And you'll notice here that the pencil areas here, so the places, the slots for the pencils, they've located them towards one of the walls of the pack rather than having it more centered. And I think this is a pretty significant error on their part because it essentially renders this last slot useless. As you can see here, if you were to try to stick a pen into this area, you'd really have to work at it. You'd have to fold this out of the way so you could slide the pen or the pencil in there. And on top of that, it would have to be a fairly short pen or pencil because there's not a lot of room here for that pen or pencil to fit. If they had just centered this in here, you would have been able to take full advantage of the height, the center height of the pack here, as well as it being a lot easier to simply access the pens and pencils because, frankly, that's one of the things that you're reaching for more than anything else when you're reaching into your pack for something other than your tech gear. The good thing is that they do have quite a few pockets here. You can see here there's a mesh pocket here to allow you to see the contents as you're searching for something. This doesn't go all the way down to the very bottom of the pack, so it's lifted off the bottom of the pack, which is, in my mind, a really good thing. If you have a pocket that's too big, then it tends to lose things in there. And then there are some stretchy sort of mesh pockets, although these mesh pockets are a little denser, so perhaps a little bit harder for you to see what you have in there. And these are big enough for a small wallet. You could even fit an iPhone XR in here, although keep in mind that it's going to extend to the point where it blocks this zippered pocket here. So it would have been better had they shifted all this down to allow for accommodating pretty much any cell phone at this point. None of them are going to be only 4 inches tall, as you can see here. Modern cell phone, I should say. This little zippered pocket here in the back is a nice pocket. It's actually fleece lined. And it goes to the depth of these two front mesh pockets here. And the fact that it zips closed means that you can put some small items in there and not have them get all loose and crazy on you if you upend the backpack. I think it's a nice organizer panel in terms of the number of slots, but in terms of its placement and its arrangement, not such a great organizer panel. We also have in this main compartment another mesh pocket that has more of a trapezoidal look to it here. Inside of this, we do have the key clip here. I found myself not actually using this all that often, and I'll explain to you why in just a moment. This pack in general has an issue with what I call the flat pocket problem. I'll get back to you in just a moment on that. And then there is just the big open area here for the rest of the main compartment. Now, let me just sort of bring our attention to this piece here. I'm going to unzip and get into our tech compartment here. Notice here we have a slot for a 13, or actually it could fit a 15-inch MacBook Pro here. And you can see here there's a padded slot just in front of it that could fit some sort of tablet. Unfortunately, it looks like, or not it looks like, it definitely can only fit one of those tablets that are sort of the medium-sized ones. So it could easily fit an iPad mini and maybe the 10.2-incher iPad, but it certainly isn't going to fit the iPad Pro. I think these days, with modern packs, knowing that there are 13-inch display tablets out there, I really think this should be a 13-inch, or should be able to accommodate a 13-inch iPad or tablet. So I think that's too bad that it was designed for a 10-inch. So let me draw your attention to the issue that I was alluding to earlier, which is the idea of having a flat pocket issue. And I should say that there are flat pocket issues all over this pack, which really takes away from its usability. So, for example, as I told you before, we have here a mesh pocket, and this is on the interior wall of the main compartment. And I don't use this very often. And the reason for that is that there's no dimension to this pocket. It doesn't have its own volume. It's really flat. So it maybe could fit something like a passport, but if you want to put in something like an external hard drive into here, or maybe you want to put your power block from your MacBook Pro into here, you're going to have a problem in that it's going to take up volume, and that volume is going to push into a really important pocket, which is the quick access pocket right here. So just so you can see, the quick access pocket is in a great location. It unzips, it's on the outside, so you can get to it really quickly. And it appears to have enough volume and be able to push outwards. But unfortunately, even this quick access pocket is flat. And it's a little strange because if you look at it from the above shot, you can see there are gussets built into this tarpaulin-like area. So you would think that this pocket itself would be able to take advantage of those gussets, and it does not. It's a completely flat pocket. And so what happens is, once I put in my sunglasses and maybe my cell phone into this area, because it is beautiful, having two slots here means you can fit two separate devices without them rubbing against each other. So I can put my sunglasses here, and then I actually just toss my cell phone into the front area here. But it's fleece-lined in the front, it's fleece-lined in the pockets themselves, so it protects things very nicely there. But once you have this filled up and this has dimension to it, then this becomes very difficult to use, because anything that has dimension to here is going to push against your glasses. And it just doesn't fit very well. It makes it so it's hard to pull out or put back the glasses. Similarly, it makes it more of a tight sort of fit than you'd want to make this a really good or accessible quick access pocket. So that's a bit of a disappointment. And this isn't the only place where we have flat pockets. We pretty much have flat pockets everywhere on this bag. In fact, let's talk about the slash pocket on the front here. Again, it appears for all the world that there's a lot of dimension here. You can see here that this tarpaulin-like area has gusseting all over the place. So you would think that when you went in here, you'd be able to take advantage of that gusseting. But this is what's so strange about this design. They have lined this with a pocket that prevents you from being able to use that volume. So you can't even use the volume up here, the gusseting that you see up here. It's the strangest thing. So it's a pocket within a pocket, but that inside pocket is limiting in volume instead of being built in such a way that it has more flexibility and you could really take advantage of the gusseting. You can't take advantage of the gusseting. It's so strange. It's almost as if I'm missing a zipper to get access to this front area that is the tarpaulin area. So super frustrating. Strange design there. Drives me a little bit nuts. And also you should know that this front pocket area here, it extends all the way up to the area just behind the quick access pocket. I actually think it would have been better had they just cut off this slash pocket right here, just below the quick access pocket, and then allowed this to have that very slight, but a little bit more volume to expand into the slash pocket. Because now, if I go ahead and fill the slash pocket, say with a layer, a shell or something like that, it's going to also interfere with the slash pocket in terms of taking up volume. So it would have been better to have it not be able to encroach in that space and have the quick access pocket have its own space, free of the burden of other pockets trying to encroach on its volume. All right, so let's go back and take a look at this tech pocket. I already talked about how I was disappointed that the tablet pocket's too small. It doesn't accommodate a 13-inch iPad Pro. But there are a couple other things here. This slot is, again, flat pocket issue. It has no gussets to it. So if you have a slightly fatter MacBook Pro, like one of the older 15 inchers or even the older 13 inchers, it's going to be a squeeze to get it in here. And in fact, if you don't have a MacBook Pro, if you have basically any other sort of normal thickness laptop, you're going to struggle to get things in and out of this. It's fleece lined, so it would be a smooth process, but it's tight. It's so tight that I'm not sure why they just didn't give it a little bit more of volume for itself. And overall, it's not as if they could easily have cut down on a little bit of the volume in the main compartment to give it to the tech compartment. The other thing that drives me a little bit crazy about this is that there is no specific pocket for file folders. Yes, you could just toss it in front of your tech here and let it sit around in here. And yes, you could just toss it into the main compartment, but you risk having file folders and papers get all bent and crinkled and messed up. And it's such an easy thing. You just put a slash pocket in there. In fact, it should just be a simple pocket that accommodates a full-size file folder and will keep your papers nice and flat. Putting it in the tech compartment area makes a lot of sense because you already have the stiffening of the frame sheet, the tech itself, the laptop or the iPad. So you might as well put it right in there. And it was a strange oversight. It easily could have gone, as you can see here, on this wall right here, you could have put a slash pocket. There are two water bottle pockets, which I think is always handy because even if you don't carry two water bottle pockets, it's a great thing to be able to stash other stuff, maybe granola bars, maybe even your car keys. All right, you can put it in there. So these are good-sized water bottle pockets. I think they have nice depth to them. It would have been nice if they had a little bit more gusseting to allow the flat of the water bottle to go all the way to the bottom. So as it is, it doesn't, it sits up a little bit higher than it needs to. And there's also no way to secure your water bottle. Sometimes pack companies want to put a little bungee cord in here that you can wrap around the throat of the bottle, and it'll keep it from bouncing out. It actually has a nice clean look to it, not having things dangling off of it. But the utility of being able to keep your water bottle in there is really so essential that it probably is more important than looking good. The zippers themselves open wide, as you can see in the main compartment. You can get right in there without too much of a problem, and you can see right down to the bottom of the pack because of how wide the zippers open up there. The only thing like I alluded to before, the only thing that I think is odd is the way that this tech compartment opens, as I said, in this heart shape. I'm not quite sure what the decision was by Mountain Hardwear to do this. It seems like you either want to have it open entirely clamshell, so have the zipper continue to unzip all the way down to this end, and then you could open the whole thing up like a book. Or you wouldn't have it come down the side at all. You'd have it stop right here at the top, and you'd be able to pull things out of here. It would be one thing if this thing contained a whole bunch of smaller pockets that you needed to get access to, like, maybe an organizer panel would be nice to have back here. But it doesn't have an organizer panel, so I don't understand why you need to have this open up quite so wide. It's a very odd decision, and it's almost like they designed it with something else in mind and then didn't go back to the design phase to say, oh yeah, we don't need to have the extra long zipper there. The other piece here is that this quick access pocket zipper is a little bit sticky. These things do loosen up over time, but I think I'm not exactly sure why, but it's really quite hard to open up and close it. And you often can't do this just with one hand. You need to be able to grab something and open it, which is exactly what I don't want to have. It's quick access for that reason. I want it to be something I could just reach over while I'm driving, unzip it, grab my sunglasses out, and throw them onto my face. So the fact that I often need to use two hands to unzip this thing means that it loses a little bit of its functionality. Okay, so let's talk about the dreaded inability for this pack to stand on its own. Now, granted, I have this pack. It's not packed with anything right now, but it doesn't make a difference. You'll have to trust me. Even when I pack this thing entirely full, it doesn't want to stand on its own. And the reason for that is, if you look from above here, it's sloped from the area where the suspension system is to the front of the pack. So it's just not going to be able to stand on its own. I don't understand why pack manufacturers design packs this way. Just make it flush. Just make it so it's perpendicular to the back, so there's the potential for these things to stand on their own. It makes no sense to me that a pack company would design a pack that cannot stand on its own. It makes it so inconvenient when you go to pack it. It makes it so inconvenient because you need to find a place to lean your pack against when you get to work or when you get to the classroom, in my case. So drives me absolutely nuts to not have a pack that can stand on its own. This pack does have a good grab handle. It's not padded, and it's not one of those things you'd want to carry for a long period of time. But it is folded on itself, a nice heavyweight piece of webbing, so it doesn't collapse. It's always there and open, ready to be grabbed. You'll note that it is on the back of the bag, which has its pluses and minuses. The plus is that if you want to hang your bag on a hook, it's right there on the back, and so it's easy to make it flush to the wall. The minus is that when you go to hold a bag like this by something that's in the back, when this is weighted, it actually is going to kick the bottom slightly towards your knees if you're holding this like a briefcase by your side. So it's always preferable to have some sort of handle element right here in the middle of the bag so that when you go to pick it up, it stays more perpendicular, and so it's not going to bang you in the knees as you're walking around. So had they just put in another handle right here, a grab handle right here, I think that would have made a really big difference in terms of the ability to carry this thing in quasi-briefcase style. There are no other handles anywhere else on the bag, nothing on the side, nothing on the bottom. That's not to be expected. It would be awesome if it had that ability to have handles on the side, but it's not that big a deal in my mind. So let me focus on a couple of miscellaneous pieces here. There are lash points, as you can see right here on the front of the bag and in the bottom corner, as well as places for me to clip my keys if I need to. So I think those are beneficial pieces that deserve to be credited with this. I also love the fact that the logos are pretty subtle, like this where it says Folsom 28, you can barely see it. And just having this the Mountain Hardwear logo up here, and that's it, means that this is pretty subdued. I like the subdued logos because it allows it to fit in the business world much more seamlessly. And then lastly, and very importantly, the interior of this bag is very light colored. So it's almost a silvery gray that's in here. So it really does reflect light around quite a bit and makes it so that the interior of the bag is bright enough that you can see all the way down to the bottom. And while it's a little bit harder to do in the slash pocket, simply because it's a smaller opening, it's still, as you can see, pretty bright there. You can't see what's going on up here, but certainly most of the stuff that you put up there is going to fall down into this area, so you'll be able to see it there. And then similarly, you still have a bright area here in the slash pocket. So I think those are really good bonus points for this bag. So in the end, when I tally up the score for this bag, I will admit that it's kind of a pain to use on a daily basis. I actually almost stopped using it after the first day, but I commit to using it for at least a week before I say that's it. I formed an opinion on it. Stuff just doesn't fit well, despite so many pockets. It's often hard to get stuff out because of the two-dimensional pockets, that flat pocket issue that I talked about. The fact that it can't stand is something that I can't stand. And no folder pockets is completely baffling to me, given that they're so easy to make and install in these things and relatively cheap. So it doesn't make any sense for them to not have folder pockets for something that clearly is designed to be a commuter bag. So it makes no sense. So I think in general, this bag just has a lot of wasted potential here. There are a few things here and there that could have made this a great design that Mountain Hardwear just sort of fell asleep at. So for example, the gusseting here, that's just bizarre. To have an area that looks like this can be filled with greater volume that you can't. What? doesn't make any sense to me. So overall, I would say that for the design and accessibility, this pack gets a 6 out of 10. Okay, so let's move to the next index, which is the comfort. And I'm going to tell you that let's go right to the suspension system. This is where the pack really shines here. It's so comfortable, and it's the shoulder straps themselves are really nicely shaped, and they're just dense enough to feel cushiony, but support the load well. So it's really a great combination. I don't know if over time they're going to get too mushy, but right now for the first couple weeks of use, this thing stood up. It felt really comfortable to wear on my back. It's really a simple design, but it works really well. It's one of the best I've used, frankly. The sternum strap is perfectly functional. It's not the widest of straps, but it doesn't need to be. It really does what it needs to do there. And I really think it's nice that they included here the option for you to use a waist belt, because there are some times where you really do need that to stabilize the load, especially if you're somebody who commutes via bicycle. There's also a nice stiff and shaped frame sheet in here, so it allows the bag to hold the loads much better than if it didn't have the frame sheet. It would sort of collapse on itself. The weight wouldn't be distributed across the back. So nice job for them in terms of designing a nice frame sheet. You can see here that if I get this out of the way, they do have an area cut out of the center. It allows for what I refer to as the chimney effect, so perspiration can evaporate and get out there fairly readily. It's not mesh, but it's more of a polyester here, so it's going to allow the air, your perspiration, to move into this area and out more readily than if you just had the coated nylon, for sure. That would be brutal. The bag itself is incredibly lightweight, and so it feels like a feather when it's empty, even though it carries loads really well, so that's a big plus. And though I will tell you that when I used this, it was a little bit sweatier than I expected. Overall, it wasn't terrible. I think the length of this area contributes to it being sweaty. If they'd cut this up perhaps in a couple of places so that there were 3 islands here on each side, so 6 altogether, I think that would have allowed for a little bit more ventilation, and it would have helped. Or they could have thickened up this foam, because as it is, this foam feels like it's about 1/3 of an inch. If maybe they had gone to a 1/2 inch thick foam, it would have stood away from your body a little bit further and would allow this chimney effect to have even more of a positive impact there. But overall, this was great to wear. It was great to wear both on campus during the day as well as on a hike. And so I wish I could actually transfer this whole suspension system to some of my other favorite packs, because I think it did such a nice job. So overall, I would rate that this is a 9.5 out of 10 in terms of comfort. Okay, so for the third index, as you know, we talk about the build quality of the pack. And let's just talk about the textiles additionally. This is made out of 840D nylon, and I'm not quite sure what 840 is, because it feels closer to 500D than it does to 1000D. So I'm not sure how that could be the case, because it's really done by weight. But really, it doesn't feel all that different from this pack right here, the Patagonia Refugio. And the Refugio itself, I think, has something like a 700D or something like that. It doesn't feel all that different to have an 840D like this one has. The lining. As you know, lining actually adds to the luxury of the pack. It also adds to the weight, but it makes a pack that much more durable when you have a lining in it. And this does have lining in some areas, but you can see here that we just have the raw back of the coated nylon in some other areas. The nylon itself feels a little bit cheap too. It feels a little bit thin. So, and it looks like it's branded, Mountain Hardwear branded nylon. The pockets themselves, they also feel a little bit lighter gauge, cheap. Even the mesh doesn't feel like it's all that stout, although this usually is pretty tough stuff, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. But overall, it doesn't give off the sense of really high quality. It's sort of in the middle there. The zippers themselves, so just looking at the hardware, they're a little bit lighter gauge than I'd want them to be. They're all YKK, so that's a plus. But I think I'd want it to be a little bit beefier than what I have here. The one thing is that they're the reverse coil, as you can see. but they are not the weatherproof or the water guard ones, which would have been nice. I will tell you that these zipper pulls are great. They make it so that there's very limited jingling sound when these things tap against each other, and it allows you, even if you're wearing gloves or mittens, to be able to rip open this bag without too much problem. So in terms of the manufacturing and the quality of the stitching, I have no problems to report here. It looks like it was well put together, and most of the seams, as you can see here, are taped, and so that really is going to increase the durability of this pack overall. And you know, even though I said it feels sort of cheap in terms of the materials that were used, it is well put together. I wouldn't think that it's going to tear apart in the seams. I think it's going to fail at fabric points before it tears apart at the seams. My sense here is that if you're somebody who uses packs the way I do, this probably is going to start to show wear, and if in fact it might even wear out entirely after a year of heavy use. But I am pretty tough on my packs, so your mileage may vary. The pocket material, by the way, I just wanted to point this out. Even though there's fleece on so many places, this fleece feels super cheap. Really thin, and you sort of chintzy. I mean, that's the only way I can put it. It doesn't feel like it's the nicest, cushiest fleece there. And even the foam that they use, specifically the foam to protect your tablet here, oh my goodness, that feels super cheap. Low density foam here. Really kind of gross. In terms of waterproofness, as I already told you, the zippers are not the water guard zippers, so that's going to be a major point of leakage. And though the tarpaulin on the front is clearly waterproof, the areas around it are just coated nylon. So it'll work if you're dashing from your car to the office, no problem there. But bring an umbrella for longer times or longer trips, because if it's raining out, it's going to seep into those zippers. So in terms of the build quality, nothing special here. It's not great. It does, like I said, it doesn't feel like it was made with the most stout material. So I'd give this a score of a 6.5 out of 10. Don't buy this if you're somebody who is a significant pack abuser, because it probably won't last you more than a year. Okay, and our last index is the crossover ability of this pack. I would tell you that in the field, this thing is great because, as I said, it's super comfortable. It carries loads well. You're not usually carrying a laptop if you're hiking in the woods, so you don't even care about the accessibility of little things. And I think it looks pretty sporty too, so it wouldn't stand out if you're walking in the woods. It looks actually like a weekend pack. And it's easily, you can get access to all the things. Having two places for water bottle pockets, I think, is always handy as well. So in the field, it's really a plus. In the boardroom, I'd say it's a bit on the casual side, especially with this nut logo that's sitting out there. Even though it's subtle, it still is a piece of hardware. So it would be fine if this was in the all black version, which they do offer, because it would look more sort of uniform. And it would even be better if the whole front area was this tarpaulin. So imagine if you had tarpaulin, maybe not the pockets, but on the bottom and in this front panel and this front panel and perhaps on the side panels here. Then it would look really sort of dressy looking. Well, if you can call a backpack dressy. It would look like it would fit better in a boardroom situation. So it's not perfect. I think it's a little bit on the casual side, but I think it could work, especially if it was in all black. So I give this thing a 2 out of 3. So if I total up all the numbers here, that brings us to a score of a 24 out of 33, which isn't super great. And I would say, in terms of my decision, I would say that it's a use it rather than a lose it, but kind of barely. I think I would use this thing on the weekends, but I can't imagine using this on a day-to-day basis just because it's such a headache to access my stuff and to pack my stuff. So there it is, 24 out of 33, a sort of use it. And I hope that doesn't disappoint you, but I do hope that this helped you if you're in the market for this pack. All right, so please be sure to subscribe if you like this, what I do here, and go ahead and take a look at my other videos, and hope to have you hop on this channel again soon. See ya.